Hello, everybody. uh, for those that didn't catch the intro, welcome to Analog Surrealism. I have spent the last 4 to 6 months of my life creating this body of work. Again, there are 19 pieces here. I've made about 40 of them. So these are the ones that made the cut. I appreciate all of you guys for coming. And yeah, should I do a artist talk or?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more. I haven't done a proper introduction because we got right into the tour. Thank you all for coming. I'm Michael Jovan Dalton, the director of the JKC Gallery. I'm really excited to have actually so many people in the gallery, Greg, and so many of you on Zoom because this is what we've been working towards for so long now, trying to figure out how to do both at the same time, and it's really working well tonight. So Phillip McConnell came to me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and said, I have some ideas. The work's not made yet, but I'd like to show it. And and of course, COVID hit and it kind of messed things up too, put things on hold a little bit. But one of the things I loved about talking to Phillip is that I actually believed he would do it and believed the work would be great because Phillip's a smart guy and he's very convincing as well when you talk to him. And when I talk to my students about the idea that it's not just having the work and making the work, it's the hustle too, and you got to get out there and you've got to approach people and talk to people, and you've got to learn how to connect and network. And I think they could learn a lot from Phillip. So without further ado, we're gonna have a little bit of an artist talk now, and then for anyone who joined later, if you have questions about the work, if you missed some of the work, we can also cover that again. All right, Phillip, thank you.
Hello again. Yeah, my name is Phillip McConnell. I'm a 30-year-old glitch artist. What glitch art is, it is the manipulation of pictures, and it's the manipulation of pictures and creating errors within them. Now, the art form has existed since the 60s, but what I'm doing with it is something relatively new and different. It's more aesthetic than anything else. For me, glitch art represents errors in things. Often when we see errors, we dismiss it as that's not correct, that's not right. But why is that? It's all perspective, or as my friend Elijah would say, it's all relative. Now, for me, errors are something that should not only be shown and glorified because we can't always show perfection. Perfection doesn't exist in a physical context. So why do we strive for perfection in things? So I made this. Now, for me, my process is very much like alchemy in a sense. You take something, break it down to its simplest form, and convert it to something else. Within alchemy, they exist those 3 steps. With this, I take the pictures, put them in a text editor, which is used to write code, and it turns into lines of code. Basically, it's raw elements, and then from there, I manipulate it to create these. So 3-step process. For me, art is something that has now become my voice. It's become how I speak, how I communicate, how I relate to things. If something is bothering me, I will create out of it. I've literally created my way out of being depressed once. Haven't been able to recreate that magic again, but it's happened at least once. So I enjoy the process of creating. This is my happy space. Whenever I'm having a day that I don't necessarily like, I make stuff. If I'm happy, I make stuff. If I'm having an okay day, I make stuff. The purpose is to always make things. So for analog surrealism, before I made a piece for it, the first thing I came up with was the title. Before I had anything else, before I had any language for what actual analog surrealism was, because I work ass backwards sometimes, I had the title analog because I wanted to make something that was closer to what I was traditionally trained in. Now, granted, I am not traditionally trained as an artist. I did not go to art school. I went to college graduated with a bachelor's of fine arts, majored in mass communications, got a minor in English. My concentration was photography. But when I graduated college, I didn't pick up a camera. I didn't shoot. I started programming. And then from there, I kept programming and programming and programming. And then one day I was making a website in HTML, put the code in wrong, and the picture distorted. And then I kept going. I kept doing and kept creating and kept making things. And then 4 years later, now I'm here. So, yeah. Questions?
You can unmute. You want to ask a question?
Don't all ask questions at once. Did somebody join or somebody leave?
It's hard to tell.
Hey, Isaac. Yes.
So, do you know in total how many rolls of film you have to develop? What's that process?
The Rabbit asked how many rolls of film I had to get developed and what was that process like? The amount of money I spent on this show, I could have put a down payment on a car. I spent so much money developing film. Thank God Apple Pays is good. Total, throughout the whole process, I have developed about 90 rolls of film, and I still have the canisters because I need to remind myself to, when I shoot with intention. I'm used to shooting on digital, so I would just take pictures of stuff and then delete it if I didn't like it. But with film, you take it and then you have to wait 3 months. So I went to a place in Southampton where they developed the film. So I would drop off loads of film at a time versus going back and forth because I don't have a car right now. So I have to travel back and forth on other people's convenience and mercy, which, yeah, so about 4 months to do everything.
How many photos per roll? Like you said, 90 rolls.
35 rolls per image, 35 images per roll. And out of that, so for all intents and purposes, most of these pictures, so like this is just 1, 2, 3 pictures. But if you look at something more complicated like the beach piece, that's about 32 pictures in one image. That piece took me like 3 months to make. Tamara's piece, I had to make 4 times because I couldn't get it right. Craig's piece, I made 3 times. Rabbit's piece, I made 3 times. The Jameson piece, I made that 2 times. That piece is 1. The swimming piece, there are 3 incarnations of that. Return to Nature, there's about 6 of them. So, and each one is I make the picture and then I look at it and then I'll say, no, I don't like this. And then I scrap it and start over from the beginning. So it's a constant clearing the palette and starting over. But again, I work fast, so here we are. Any other questions?
So that said, you did a lot of pieces with the ones that you selected. Is there something that you would want to say that didn't come out of these?
When you say something I wanted to say, what do you?
For example, like I do this behind you.
Yeah.
And like the anxiety. Was there a piece that maybe had a message that you thought didn't hear?
Yes. Elijah asked, is there a piece that I had made that didn't fit the cut, but I wanted it in the body of work? I wanted to make a piece of my coworkers at Apple. And I know it's very weird, and a lot of people don't like where they work, but I like where I work. But I like the people that I work with more than anything. And during the pandemic, Apple still paid us from home to just be there and do like modules and stuff like that. They paid us. Then when we went back, they made sure we were safe. And I know this sounds like very like propaganda for the place that I work, but but during that time period, I got to bond with a bunch of people that before we were just coworkers, and then I ended up growing a lot closer to because that's where I spent all my time at because I couldn't go anywhere else. I was forced in this building, in these 4 walls, to be with these people 5 days out of the week for 8 hours at a time, 9 hours really at a time. When you do that, you grow with people. You form new friendships. Like Elijah, me and you were friends before. We didn't like talk and like hang out a lot prior to us being in the trenches when we had the wall up at Apple. But I've grown closer to a lot of these people. And I saw Kurt over there. Kurt's another person that me and Kurt were, where's Kurt at? There's Kurt. It's Sherelle. Hey, Sherelle. Me and Kurt were close before, well, we were friends before, but we weren't like as close until we had to hang out every single day because we were in the same role at the same time. But yeah, the Apple piece was the one that I wanted to be in here, but it just didn't fit with everything else. I still have it. It's still made. And I might show it one day. But you know, we'll see at some point. Any other questions? Mhm. They exist on my hard drive, and that's where they will live forever. Some of those pieces will never see the light of day just because they're not. I mean, they're good by conventional standards because, I mean, you know, let's face it, I'm good, but but they're not up to the par of what I want to do. For me, I'm in a phase in my career where I'm trying to make that transition into the next step. Hence why I'm also dressed like an actual person and not like a hoodlum, like I like to normally dress. But I'm in that phase now where I want to make the next step in my career. In order for me to make the next step, sometimes things have to get cut, whether I like it or not. If it's not up to snuff, if it's not up to par, then I have to cut it. So yeah, they will forever live on my hard drive and probably never see the light of day until I'm at that point in my life where they're like, oh, well, you know, this was his early work, you know, on that Wikipedia page. Gee. Oh, file size is a funny thing. So I had to buy a new computer to handle the files because the Photoshop program I was using on my Windows computer couldn't handle anything over 6 gigs. These pictures, most of these pictures, the average file size is about 100 to 150 gigs, which if you don't know file size, it is very, very large. I have had to wipe my computer at least twice because it crashed, because there was just so much stuff on it. I've had to buy 2 external hard drives just to keep everything. But what was the first part? Programs. So I use a program called Notepad++. What Notepad++ is, it's a simple coding program. What you do is it lets you type code and then save it and then upload it to something. I use it for pictures, which is not what its intended purpose is used for. But like a lot of Windows programs, you can literally use them for anything you want because they're not regulated like iOS stuff. So, and I'll use Photoshop for colors or to shrink pictures because sometimes the pictures just get so large that you can't do anything with them because you can't send them to nobody because the pictures is 100 gigs. Like you can't do anything with it. Hello.
Good. Good time. Look upstairs.
Mute
Here's a
yourself.
study with CIA gone for long period.
Hello, Darian. Hello, Eric. But yeah. Any other questions?
From Tom to everyone, how has COVID impacted your artistic process and impacted your end result for the pieces you create?
It's become very difficult to shoot during COVID because you're not supposed to go anywhere. So a lot of it was process driven. A lot of it was just changing things and trying to find better ways to do what I was doing, but from the safety of my home and like the safety of just being safe in general. But it did make it very, very hard not being able to leave my house for 4 months when I had a deadline for a project. But yeah, it still found time, found ways to get out to spaces and get out to places. That's why you see a lot of the images are of me or they're of things like the Jameson picture. I took that in my room. The Capitol picture, I literally took that. The Capitol building is like maybe 5 minutes from my house. Took that on a quick walk around the city, which looked abandoned at the time. And just other things that trying to stay safe is a very difficult thing when you're trying to be artistic at the same time, because sometimes you just want to climb on top of a building and take a picture or something. That's not the safest thing to do. But cooler heads prevail in those, and we got it done. That's the important part. Gee. Now I do. I used to printing question. I used to print on metal, but the problem with printing on metal is that it's expensive. But I found a place that can print on metal very reasonably. I prefer printing on canvas, and I don't know if this is because I don't know, I'm kind of bougie in the sense that I feel like art should be on canvas. Granted, art looks good on anything if you do it well enough, but I don't know. I like the look of canvas. I like the aesthetic. I like the feel of it. I thought that was my phone. I like the aesthetic. I like the look of it. And I like the feel of having like a physical canvas. And I don't know, there's something very, I don't know. I still don't think that I'm a real artist yet. I'm waiting for the moment to wake up. So this is what I imagine an artist would print their stuff on canvas. But yeah, I like printing on other stuff too. But canvas is what I prefer. Any other questions? Hi, Nigeria. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Process, form, fashion, any of the pieces? Nope. Cool. All right. Looks like we're good.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who came tonight.
All right. Hello. Hello. Welcome. My name is Phillip McConnell, and this is Analog Surrealism. What Analog Surrealism is, it is me pretty much taking my digital process and taking film photography and making surrealistic pictures out of it. Most of them. These three here are unique to everything else in the show because they are, in fact, black and white. There's no color in them. But these three are part of a set. During the summer, I went to the Outer Banks with my best friend, Rabbit. And I managed to get these really beautiful black and white pictures. Now, granted, in this picture, Bliss right here, which is where we'll start, this is the entryway to the dock to this thing called the Sound. The Sound is this body of water that pretty much stretches on for like 8-10 miles. It's very, very long, but the water only comes up to about your chest. So it doesn't extend water doesn't go any higher than that. Now, me being terrified of water, it was comforting being able to just kind of walk into the ether. Still terrifying though, regardless. Then we move on to Smokestack. This one is more technically sound than anything else I have. Still obeying the rule of thirds and everything like that. Now, as far as the Smokestack piece goes, I shot this when I was in New York with one of my mentors, Craig Shofed. So this is was going to be part of his piece, but it was so great that I was like, nah, I like this on its own. This piece over here, which is kind of a part 2 to the first piece, because this is closer on the actual dock. That was actually built by the people that lived there. So that wasn't part of the house we were staying in. That was actually created. What this is 2 actual pieces put together. That's why there's two horizons in it. For me, it just represents peace, you look at it, you can kind of stare into the infinite void of forever. Not to be so dramatic, but yeah. Now we move over here. Then we have this piece, Endless. Again, this is literally in the Sound, in that large body of water that was in North Carolina. It literally extends forever. It looks like it goes forever. Eventually it does dip off into the ocean. I think I walked out maybe in a mile before my anxiety got the best of me. And I was like, nah, I need to turn around. I don't trust this. But yeah, again, this is one of those things that you can kind of stare into forever. just look into the void and there's no conceivable end to it. It just kind of goes. Now we'll move over here. Return to Nature is a series that I started about 4 years ago. This is 5 of 6, so I'm still going to make the last one. Still not sure what it is yet. But Return to Nature is a juxtaposition series, basically placing architecture against nature, because these two constructs mirror each other so well and in form and fashion. And we often try to emulate what we see in nature in architecture, even with the humming of machines, how they're very synchronistic, matches that the humming of a rainforest. And Rabbit's in that piece as well, because me and her were on a hike. I'm not a fan of hiking. I'm not good at it. But yeah, we were on a mountain at that time and the trees were beautiful. So here we are. This piece is called A Day in the Park. To me, this piece, you don't see a lot of positive images of Black fatherhood in media and things like that. But I've watched this man in this picture grow up. He's one of my closest friends. So I've watched him grow up from somebody that I couldn't stand being around, who constantly made terrible jokes, but he has now grown into this man. He is a father, he's a provider, he has a home with his wife. Like that, actually just went to their wedding recently. So that's the thing that happened. All my friends are married. Yeah, so that's the thing that's going on in my life right now. But to me, this piece represents the trials and tribulations of being a Black father. So it starts here with him guiding his son out of the darkness, up there to him uplifting him to greater heights, him standing on his own and traveling through the parables of life by himself, but still with that ever guiding, watchful eye of a father. And then ultimately, if something does happen, he's there to catch him and slide through and into adversity and always embrace him with love and compassion and empathy, which is not, you don't see that a lot in media. So I had the opportunity to portray that, and that's what I wanted to show with this. I think I got it, maybe. So this piece, again, featuring Rabbit, is called The Beach. What this piece represents is like, you can never actually leave the beach. The beach is circling, it's encompassing. You want peace, you want serenity, but then when you get there, you try and leave eventually, but you can't. There's something about the beach that calls you back, because even now I can like hear ocean waves and I can like feel the water under my hands. Like I miss it. And I've only been there once. So there's something addicting about beaches. And hold on real quick. This lighthouse is one of the biggest lighthouses in the United States, right? I saw it. Rabbit showed me it. We drove out there and it's this massive monolith of a structure that its only purpose, it was actually driven there from its original place because it was like falling to the ocean, right? And it's just this giant obelisk of a structure. And granted, this piece is doing it no justice to the scale of it. I tried to scale it accurately, but this thing is massive. It's about the size of like a very, very large building. Now we'll move over here. This is Decay 1 and Decay 2. This is a building in Trenton that I don't quite know the name of, but something about it is very striking. It kind of looks like it's falling apart. I mean, it is falling apart for all intents and purposes, but it looks almost like it's decaying on itself. And every day you go back there, there's less and less of the building. Someone's mic is not muted. So every day you see less and less of the building itself because the building is slowly falling apart. And new people just came here. Yay.
Hey, we're just doing a tour of the work right now.
Yeah. So something, and the piece next to it is Decay 2, which I actually got this idea from Rabbit, where she suggested that I should show the pre-images before they're all compiled together. So what this is like mid-step in that process of me making another picture. So, but it was too good for me to put it in anything. It was good enough to stand on its own. There's another piece like this, which we'll get into. Now we move over here. I had the pleasure of getting the opportunity to shoot one of my mentors.
I love it.
That is the person who the piece is about, Samara Torres. And I got the opportunity to go to her studio. It took us a few days to like really get everything, but I got the opportunity to go there and shoot her in her element while she was working on a body of work. I was working on a body of work. There was a nice little symmetry there. But the elements in this piece, there's some samples of her work, as well as some pictures, well, obviously pictures around her studio, but some phrases that she had posted in her studio. To me, the center of this piece here, it's a common theme, a common motif throughout her work is to have this shadow man figure. And what she explained to me, the details of what the shadow man meant to her, it's still, to me, that looks like is a part of her, but not really a part of her, but also a part of her. As artists, we tend to put our own life experience into what we make and into the things that we have and our experiences and everything like that, because the only thing we know to pull from is what we have gone through ourselves. So for me, this quote that says, the artist's job is not to succumb to despair, but to find the antidote for the emptiness of existence. I've never related to something so much in my life before, because I do, like anybody else, we get sad sometimes, but our job is not to fall into the void. But when it stares at you, stare back. Not to be so morbid, but next piece. This is
It's the best piece you made.
This is Tranquility. In Tranquility, this is actually a picture taken. All these are things that I took into Tamara's studio that I wanted to include in the piece with her, but I've been told at times in my work can be too busy. So what I wanted to do was to make it less busy and even combine the two. It looked like two separate pieces, but I had to let this exist on its own. To me, this is very tranquil. You look at it and you think peace. You think a place like, oh, I'd read a book here. Tranquility. But it's also, I don't know, the Buddha means something special to me. It represents a time in my life where I was still starting out on my spiritual path, before I was an artist, before I was doing anything else, when I literally had no guidance in my life. Ironically enough, I was looking towards different spiritual practices, and Buddhism was one of the ones that kind of like, I saw it, I liked it, and I started to adopt certain principles and practices. So to me, whenever I see it, I'm like, oh, I recognize that. That looks like I see myself when I see that. So let's move on. This way. Hello. Yo, I like that coat, bro.
Not that you're not alive.
So this piece is titled Nomad. This is another piece of my mentor. His name is Craig Schofed. Craig is very nomadic in a sense. He travels a lot, but in him traveling a lot, it's he takes these really unique pictures of structures and outside in general, because that's what comes with traveling a lot. So what I wanted to do for his piece, me and him went to New York, and I wanted to kind of shoot him doing the thing that he does the best, shooting pictures of structures and things outside. And I managed to get some really, really dope pictures of him kind of just traveling. And, shout out Craig. Dun, 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 dun. So this piece is the first piece that I made for this project. This piece is titled St. John. It's a St. John Baptist Church in Brooklyn. when I had first came up with this concept about 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago, before I ever sent Michael a proposal, I had gotten a film camera from my godmother. Now, granted, I had no idea how to shoot on film or what it was, and I actually got these pictures processed at Walgreens. That's how much, ironically enough, green I was to the process. But this is all one single image. There's nothing else in it but the one picture of just the church itself. Everything is layered and structured in a way that it kind of reminds me of the chaos of New York City. It's very vibrant, very wild, but at the same time, very controlled. If you know how to navigate the city, then you can navigate anywhere. But if you don't, it's a jungle. It's terrifying. So to me, this piece sort of embodies that. And there's always somewhere for your eyes to look. There's never a dull spot. Anywhere you look on a piece, everywhere is different, but it is the same. Because even like this section up here is just a repeated section of over here, and then this is that, and then this is that over here. Just everything builds upon everything else to make this entire piece. And like I said, this was the first piece that I made of this series. So can we fit through here, or should we go around?
Either way, either is fine.
More people are here.
Hey.
Hello. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody that came. I appreciate all of you coming in person. And I appreciate everybody over Zoom as well. These are trying times, to say the least.
Where are we going?
These two. So these two pieces are, Michael actually had the idea to put these two together because they look alike. Hey, more people came. Look at that. People just keep rolling in. It's almost like there's an event here. So Michael had the idea to put these two pieces together because of the symmetry between the shape of the bottle. This is the Capitol building, and that is the bottle of Jameson. Ironically enough, that is the bottle of Jameson is the first picture that I took with the film that I got. So going backwards a little bit, I got another film camera from Craig because I didn't know what I was going to do once I got the okay from Michael to show here. And he gave me a film camera, but I had no film to go with it. I had no idea where I was going to get film from, how to get film, what to do. I literally just had a concept and like 2 pieces. And Michael was like, cool, we'll put it up. So then I remember sitting in the break room. I work at Apple. A coworker named James, he handed me a box of film and was like, oh, hey, I know what you're working on. I had a bunch of old film laying around. Literally a gift from whoever you believe in was dropped in my lap, and I got the opportunity. It was like 30, 40 rolls of film that were just unused. This was the first picture I took with it. Now, as far as why it's a bottle of Jameson, if you know me, you know why. If you don't, you can probably guess. But again, this piece represents just what it's like. Now, Jameson is my preferred drink of choice. I prefer Irish whiskey because I'm an adult now and I can make that decision. Jameson it's got a smoothness to it. But the problem with very, very smooth alcohol is eventually you will see the room like that. It will spin very easy, very quickly. But, we don't like to do that anymore. This piece, the reason I title it Simple and Clean is because it is a black and white image. Now, when you put pictures through the coding process, it brings out color even in black and white images because there's no color present in this picture. But I will still manage to get that deep blue, that sort of like pastel yellow and that pastel like turquoise color off of me repeating the lines over and over and over again and breaking the picture until I got my desired effect. So simple and clean. There's a lot of people here. Hello again. This piece is titled Dora. This piece is my best friend, Brass Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. This piece is a sort of homage to all of our travels together. because I spent pretty much every day with her for the last 3 years, 4 years, like 3 years, pretty much.
I thought you said 3 years, 34 years.
No, somewhere. I've been reincarnated a few times, who knows? But this piece is an homage to all of our travels. It's got a section of everything that we've done and everywhere that we've been. And this piece is one of my favorite pieces in the show because it represents the body of work that I've made and who I've made it with. Because although it's just me creating work, it's not just me making stuff, it's also me sharing this experience with somebody else. Because you don't get to do that too often. Often, artists, we work in a vacuum. We work in an echo chamber. We work by ourselves because we're very like, you keep to yourself. You're an artist. What do you need people for? But you do need people. You need people to share experiences with. Experiences are made to be shared. You're not made to do things by yourself. As humans, we are creatures of social creatures. But the problem with it is that oftentimes you'll find a lot of artists don't do that. For me, I wanted to show that and not give the interpretation that I've made all this by myself. I'm a firm believer in collaboration. You can ask anybody in here that I've worked with before. There are several of you. Hello. But I'm a firm believer in working with other artists for the simple fact, like, yeah, I'm cool, but you are also great as well. So why don't we make great things together? But yeah, that's Dora. And this is another piece featuring Rabbit because she's in all my work. This piece is titled Swimming. We were on an adventure in the Trenton Swamp, and I remember seeing this sign. It said no swimming. And I thought that was ridiculous, that you shouldn't have to tell people not to swim in a swamp. But magically there's a sign there because somebody has done it more than once, that they had to put a sign up. And it's still the most baffling, ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But it was prominent enough for me to have to take a picture of it. The picture is actually part of James's pool. And yeah, it just embodies you can swim anywhere you want. You shouldn't swim anywhere you want, but you can. And now we are here, the final piece. This is the first piece I made for the project after I got the film. Now, the product placement piece, that's the first piece that I shot, but this is the first piece that I made with very, very old film. Now, I don't know if you know much about film, but if you don't take care of it, everything will come out grainy. Doesn't matter how good you take the picture, everything will have little dots of grain in it. So what I wanted to do and try to do something a little different, I wanted to play with perspective. So you see the train going into the picture, the car coming out of the picture. And for me, the number significance of 444, which is a number that I do see often, whenever I'm having a doubting moment, whenever I'm having a time where I'm like, I'm not really sure if this is what I should be doing, I'll see something of reference that will remind me that I'm on the right path. This number is one of those cues to me that I'm on the right path. So if I'm ever having a doubting day, I'll look at my phone, it'll be like 444, and I'll be like, cool, bet. I need to keep my head up, I need to keep going. Now, granted, the number could mean absolutely nothing on the grand scale of things. But to me, when I see it, it's a reference point to keep going. Thank you. Now, there are 2 more pieces.
Oh, yes, there wasn't the last one.
That wasn't the last one. I thought it was. So these 2 pieces are unique and special in their own right. These 2 pieces are part of another series, ironically enough. This piece, Helios, is part of a series called Icarus Complex, which will be another project I'm working on that deals with Greek motifs and, Greek gods and all the other good stuff. So what I wanted to do was reimagine Greek deities as figures of and faces of Blackness, because you don't often see proper portrayals of people of color in media. And whenever you do see media that is centered towards people of color, it is often whitewashed. So I did the reverse. I don't know if you know about a movie called Gods of Egypt, but all the deities in that movie were white, even though it's called Gods of Egypt. But I wanted to do the opposite with this series and with this piece. This is my friend Darian. Darian is made to represent the sun god Helios. In the piece, we see the horses carrying the sun to nighttime, and also literally him holding the sun. Darian's personality is one that reminds me of light in general. When he walks into a room, his presence is felt. When he speaks with intention. When he looks with insight, which are all the things that Helios represents. That's why I chose Helios for him. And there's also a poem here that I wrote because I'm also a writer as well. The marble in this piece, and I'm very proud of this, I made all of this in Photoshop. The marble, I made it by hand. It took me 3.5 hours to make it. Every vein, every detail was handcrafted and removed and taken out and put in there very specifically. There are some pieces that I make with specific intention. There are others where I just kind of throw stuff at the wall, put it together. I like it, don't like it. Majority of the work in this show, I've had to make twice because the first time I made it, I didn't like what I made. So for all intents and purposes, I've made about 30 to 40 pieces for this show. There's only 19 here, just to give you some perspective. But yeah, so now we move on to the other piece. This piece was actually shot. This is the only piece in the show that was not shot by me. This piece was shot by Tamara in her studio and by my friend Darian. This piece is titled The Duality of Anxiety. For me, when I'm feeling anxious, I have two modes. I'm either super bubbly and silly, or I retreat into my phone. And if you ask anybody that works with me, you either see one of those two sides, depending on what kind of day I'm having. But to me, it represents what I'm feeling when I'm anxious. I don't like feeling anxious. No one likes feeling anxious, but it's a part of life. You still have to be able to be a person while you're feeling this almost crippling feeling, because if you don't, everything stops. But while everything stops, everything still keeps going. There's no such thing as a break. You still have to continue to be a person even.
I was unmuted.
Hello. You still have to continue to be a person even when you don't feel like being a person. And it's not fun, but it's something that you have to do. So this is the duality of anxiety. I wrote a poem for it as well too. But look out for that later date. You probably can't read it.
We'll do a high-def tour. I'll post that.
Okay.
For people who can't see it. Yep.
All right. And this is part of a series titled Context is King. What Context is King is, it's a series of pictures and poetry, and the poetry is made to highlight the picture as well as the picture is made to highlight the poetry. So they're made to have this unique language with each other that you don't see in a lot of art, because most art is just standalone, just exists by itself. But me being an artist of more than one facet, it's only natural that the two intersect, because why would I not write about what I create and create what I write about? They sort of go hand in hand. But again, now that was the for real last piece. All right, thank you.